We're going to start our official program now. So I'm Lorraine Egan. I'm the president of Damon Runyon. And first, thank you. First, let me say how grateful we are for all of you coming out this morning to support our important work. I keep getting reminded, it seems today, how very early it is. So we're very grateful because I know many of you had to get up very early to be here. So as Alan said, this year marks the 70th anniversary of Damon Runyon Cancer Research Foundation. So I, of course, have to start with a little bit of history. First, who was Damon Runyon? He was a journalist and writer during the early 20th century who wrote the stories that the Broadway show Guys and Dolls is based on. And he was a real New York character. Supposedly, he drank 40 cups of coffee a day and had 40 cigarettes with each one, which explains why he died of throat cancer at the end of 1946. And actually, interestingly, one of the first scientists that we funded as an organization was one of the scientists who proved the connection between cigarette smoking and cancer. So I guess that's a fitting legacy for Damon Runyon himself. His friend Walter Winchell was also a legendary journalist and a top radio broadcaster of that era. And when Damon Runyon died, he went on his radio program and asked everyone across America to send in their nickels and dimes to support cancer research to find a cure. And because virtually every American listened to Walter Winchell's radio program, they all did send in their money. The outpouring was extraordinary, and that's how our organization was initially founded. And from the start, Walter Winchell was very committed to funding early career scientists because he felt very strongly that you needed to continue to have new generations of brilliant scientists focused on this problem. He was really a visionary. And there is no question in my mind that our greatest weapon against cancer is brilliant scientists, and that's all that we stand for as an organization. Which leads me to the 3 points I want to make this morning. First, I believe in the power of scientists to solve every scientific challenge there is, and that humankind can solve all of these challenges. People talk a lot these days about moonshots, but when I look back on the 20th century, what really astounds me is how scientists cured or prevented the diseases that killed people in that century. When you think about it, influenza, tuberculosis, polio, smallpox, all of these diseases that were so devastating, and they have all been cured or prevented. And most impressively to me, and I constantly think about this, the average lifespan in the United States went from 47 at the beginning of the 20th century to 78 at the end of the 20th century. And I feel pretty confident that I wouldn't be standing here talking to you today if I had been living in the early 20th century. So that's a stark reminder to me of the power of brilliant scientists. So cancer is now one of our greatest scientific challenges of our era. And I feel the same way about cancer that I say about all the other diseases that we've cured. And over the past 70 years of our history, tremendous progress has been made. For example, since the 1990s, cancer deaths have dropped by 25%. That's extraordinary. And now, as a result of that, there are 2.1 million people who didn't die as a result. So I strongly believe, and more importantly, scientists strongly believe now, that our grandchildren and our children will not fear cancer in the way we do today. And I'll tell you that scientists tend to be pretty conservative about what they say about the future, but I have seen a sea change in people's optimism about our ability to finally crack this disease. So second, what is the role of Damon Runyon in this? It's to recruit the brilliant scientists who will do this important work. So we focus on scientists who not only are incredibly smart, but they're also creative and fearless, and they believe nothing is impossible. And what we're trying to do is bring these young revolutionaries into cancer research and seed their radical new ideas and get them up and running. And our return on investment from that is their entire careers of research that they produce then. And our work is especially important in today's research funding environment. Many of you probably don't know that federal research funding has declined over the 21st century rather than grown. And not to get into politics, but the current administration is actually proposing draconian cuts to our federal research dollars. And that makes it especially difficult for young scientists whose science is unproven and are trying to get into the field. It's really, really hard for them, as they said in the show Hamilton, to get their shot. And our goal as an organization is to let them have their shot. So what we do is we invest in the most brilliant talent we can find, and we seed their new ideas. And we partner with the major research institutions. We fund people all across the nation, so at Memorial Sloan Kettering and the other elite institutions here in New York, Harvard, Dana-Farber, Stanford, Duke, all of the amazing institutions across the country have Damon Runyon scientists working in them. And they're selected through a really rigorous process where we ask today's generation of leaders, the leading scientists around the country, to help us identify who the next generation will be, in the theory that it takes one to know one. And our strategy works. Over the past 70 years, as Alan said, 12 of our scientists have received the Nobel Prize. But more importantly, they've made fundamental discoveries about how cells become cancerous, and they've developed new therapies that are changing people's lives, including today's immunotherapies that have been so successful, and the targeted therapies that are really able to hone in on the unique characteristics of cancer cells and target them specifically. We have a booklet at your seats that we feature some of the scientists that we funded over the course of our 70 years. It's just a handful, and I can assure you that there are many, many more. And for those scientists in the room, we're grateful for all your discoveries, even if you weren't highlighted in our booklet, because we think you're amazing. So the third thing I want to say is to reiterate that we have been committed since our founding to promise that 100% of donations go to the research, and we do that through a wonderful Broadway Tickets partnership that you'll hear about in a little bit, and also our endowment. So every dollar that goes to Damon Runyon goes to the research. So that's our story. In a snapshot, I say that we are an elite recruiting and venture capital firm for cancer research, seeking the best new talent to make the next big breakthroughs. So now what I'd like to do is invite a special friend up to talk to you and share his story. Brent Bouchez, the founder of Bouchez Page and one of the smartest marketing men on the planet. So Brent, where are you?